Hey there! Today we're diving into a topic that might surprise you. Did you know the United States is one of the wealthiest countries in the world? According to the World Bank, America's GDP per capita is a jaw-dropping $82,769. Sounds like every American should be living large, right? Well, not exactly. Most Americans aren't living anywhere near that income. Let's break down why that number is more of an illusion of prosperity than actual reality. First off, what even is GDP per capita? Basically, it's the country's total economic output divided by its population. It's great for measuring the overall economy, but it's not a good way to figure out how much the average person makes. Here's why. $82,769 is an average, and averages get skewed by a few super rich people at the top. The real median personal income, the number that represents what a typical person actually earns, is just $42,220. Yep, that's almost half of the per capita GDP. To give you a clearer picture, about 25% to 30% of Americans have incomes at or above that $82,769 mark. But that means the majority, 70% to 75% of people, are earning way less. So, while the US economy looks like a powerhouse on paper, most people aren't feeling that wealth in their wallets. So, what does it actually take to live comfortably in America? Well, according to Smart Asset, you'd need to make about $96,500 a year in a typical US city. That's based on the 50-30-20 rule, 50% for essentials, 30% for fun stuff, and 20% for savings. But here's the kicker. Only about 20% of Americans reach that level of income. So for most people, comfortable is still just a dream, and it doesn't stop there. Americans pay way more for healthcare, insurance, rent and mortgages than people in other developed countries. A study by Kaiser Family Foundation shows that the average American spends nearly double what people in the UK, Canada and Germany pay for healthcare. Housing? The US has some of the highest rent and mortgage costs in the developed world. Combine that with stagnant incomes, and even middle-class families are living paycheck to paycheck. Now let's switch gears and check out some signs of affluence. First up, mega yachts. The US ranks near the top in mega yachts per capita. These floating palaces aren't exactly for your average person, unless your last name is Bezos or Musk. For the rest of us, we're just admiring them from the dock. Then there's supercars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens. You'll see them cruising in Beverly Hills and Miami. The US is one of the biggest markets for luxury cars. But let's face it, most of us are just watching them fly by, and of course there's beef consumption. Americans eat more than 57 pounds of beef per person each year, putting us right up there with Australia. Why? We've got the grasslands for it. But all that beef also helps make us one of the fattest nations in the world. So, yay? Let's get practical. First up, piano ownership. China leads the world, with 8.1% of households owning a piano. In the US, it's about 7.8%. Not bad, but it shows how quickly China's rising middle class is catching up. Then there's cell phones. The US has about 1.2 cell phones per person, which sounds solid, until you realize we rank 93rd globally. Behind places like Hong Kong, 3 phones per person, and even Mauritania. Turns out we're not exactly leading the pack. And finally, washing machines. Only about 76% of US households have one. Compare that to Europe's 90% average, and you'll see we're pretty far behind. Countries like Portugal have nearly 96% of households with a washing machine, but hey, we're still ahead of India. So when it comes to laundry, we're kind of third world status compared to the developed world. So what does all this tell us? Some parts of America are very wealthy. Mega yachts, supercars, luxury goods. But for most Americans, not so much. About 70% to 75% of taxpayers earn less than the $82,769 GDP per capita figure. Meanwhile, the income needed to live comfortably is $96,500 a year. Only about 20% of Americans get there. So, while America looks rich on paper, the reality is far more complicated. Rising costs for housing, healthcare and education mean many Americans are just struggling to stay afloat. The $82,769 GDP per capita. It's more of an illusion than reality. It hides the growing wealth gap and gives a false impression that everyone's doing just fine. In the end, counting things can reveal a lot. America's definitely wealthy, but the wealth isn't exactly shared. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more videos that break down the numbers and tell the real story. See you next time.